On September 1, 2025, the most significant development in health science is the approval by the United States Food and Drug Administration of Leqembi IQLIK, the first at-home, weekly autoinjector for maintenance treatment of early Alzheimer's disease. Leqembi, known generically as lecanemab, is a monoclonal antibody therapy directed against aggregated amyloid beta, including toxic protofibrils, which are believed to contribute to the downstream development of tau pathology, neurodegeneration, and clinical decline. Previously, patients eligible for Leqembi treatment were required to receive intravenous infusions every 2 weeks during an 18-month induction course and then monthly infusions for maintenance. The new FDA approval covers Leqembi IQLIK, a 360 mg subcutaneous injection delivered by autoinjector in about 15 seconds, which can be administered at home or in a clinic once per week for patients who have already completed the full 18-month course of intravenous therapy. This represents the first time patients with Alzheimer's have an at-home disease-modifying therapy option following the initial infusion-based induction phase. Eisai and Biogen, the companies that developed and commercialize Leqembi, announced that the product will become commercially available in the United States on October 6, 2025, at a list price of $19,500 per year for the auto-injectors. The approval marks a major shift in how patients, caregivers, and health systems may manage Alzheimer's treatment moving forward, as it reduces dependence on infusion centers and allows for more accessible long-term maintenance therapy. The approval was based on data from the pivotal Clarity AD Phase 3 trial, which demonstrated that lecanemab slowed cognitive and functional decline in people with early Alzheimer's disease compared to placebo. Patients in the trial initially received intravenous infusions, and subsequent extension data provided evidence that maintenance therapy could be continued safely and effectively with either intravenous infusions or the new subcutaneous autoinjector. The FDA restricted this approval specifically to patients who have already completed the 18-month intravenous induction regimen. Patients starting on Leqembi must still begin with infusions and only later transition to weekly subcutaneous auto-injections. Eisai has indicated that it intends to pursue regulatory approval for earlier use of the injectable format, but at this stage the indication is limited to post-induction maintenance dosing. The device itself is designed to simplify treatment. Each pre-filled auto-injector contains 360 mg of lecanemab in 1.8 ml of solution. It is designed to be administered in the thigh or abdomen, delivering the dose in about 15 seconds. This contrasts with the intravenous infusion, which takes around an hour and requires travel to and time in an infusion center every 2 to 4 weeks. The shift from infusions to auto-injections means patients can maintain therapy without the same burdens on infusion suites, caregivers, and patients themselves. For people in rural areas with mobility limitations or who rely on caregivers with limited availability, the ability to perform treatment at home may make continuation of therapy more realistic. It also means infusion center capacity can be freed up for new patients who are starting induction therapy or for patients with other conditions that require regular intravenous infusions. From a health system perspective, this transition could significantly increase overall treatment capacity and help expand access to disease-modifying therapies for Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease affects approximately 7.2 million people aged 65 and older in the United States in 2025, and that number is projected to continue rising as the population ages. While only a subset of patients qualify for Leqembi treatment, those in the earliest stages of disease, with confirmed amyloid pathology, and now specifically those who have already completed 18 months of infusions, the demand for effective, accessible therapies is enormous. By providing a way to continue treatment outside of infusion centers, Leqembi IQLIK has the potential to reduce bottlenecks in care delivery and improve adherence to long-term therapy, which is critical since benefits accumulate gradually and depend on sustained treatment. Safety remains an important consideration. Like other anti-amyloid monoclonal antibodies, lecanemab carries a risk of amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, or ARIA. ARIA includes ARIA-E, characterized by brain edema or swelling, and ARIA-H, characterized by microhemorrhages or macrohemorrhages. These side effects can be asymptomatic and detected only on MRI, but in some cases can be symptomatic or even serious. The risk is significantly higher in patients who carry 2 copies of the APOE4 gene variant, so genetic testing and counseling are recommended before initiating therapy. The FDA labeling and clinical practice guidelines recommend ongoing MRI monitoring, especially during the induction phase, to detect ARIA early. On August 28, 2025, just days before the autoinjector approval, the FDA issued new guidance recommending that patients receive an MRI before the 3rd infusion, after a review of early serious ARIA-E cases in patients receiving intravenous Leqembi. This highlights the ongoing importance of imaging surveillance. While the autoinjector format makes maintenance therapy easier, it does not eliminate the need for MRI monitoring, clinician oversight, or patient education about ARIA symptoms. Patients who transition to home injections will still need to adhere to imaging schedules and follow-up visits to ensure safety is maintained. From a cost and policy perspective, Leqembi IQLIK will list in the United States at $19,500 annually, the same price point as monthly intravenous maintenance dosing. Whether patients or health systems ultimately save money depends on avoided infusion-related costs and efficiencies in health system capacity. Medicare has covered Leqembi since 2023 under a coverage with evidence development policy, which requires clinicians to enter patient data into a simple registry in order to track real-world safety and outcomes. This policy applies equally to intravenous and subcutaneous administration. Commercial payers often follow Medicare's lead, though they may impose their own utilization management criteria. Because of the registry requirement, rich real-world evidence on safety, adherence, persistence, and outcomes will accumulate as more patients transition to the autoinjector format. That data may further inform monitoring guidelines, payer decisions, and potentially future label expansions. Globally, the shift to accessible maintenance therapy is also accelerating. Leqembi was approved by the European Commission in April 2025. On August 25, 2025, it launched in Austria, and on September 1, 2025, it launched in Germany, marking the first large European market rollout. National health technology assessment agencies will evaluate the therapy's cost-effectiveness, weighing modest clinical benefits against high costs, imaging burdens, and system capacity. At-home injection formats could strengthen the case for adoption by reducing pressure on infusion facilities and caregivers. Germany's launch coinciding with the FDA's approval of the autoinjector underscores the global momentum of disease-modifying Alzheimer's therapies and signals that more European countries will soon face decisions about reimbursement and rollout. The impact of this approval over the next 1 to 2 years is expected to be multifaceted. First, the ability to continue treatment at home may drive earlier diagnosis and referral. Primary care physicians and memory clinics may be more inclined to screen for cognitive impairment and order amyloid confirmation testing if effective, manageable treatments are available. Second, clinical workflows will adapt. Hospitals and clinics will transition completers of induction therapy to home injections, freeing staff and infusion chairs. This will allow infusion capacity to be allocated more effectively, reducing waiting lists. Third, competition among disease-modifying therapies will increase. Eli Lilly's donanemab, branded as Kisunla, is also approved for Alzheimer's treatment. Eisai and Biogen's move to offer a convenient at-home autoinjector may pressure competitors to develop similar formats and could set the stage for combination regimens that target both amyloid and tau. Fourth, registry-based real-world evidence will clarify long-term safety, adherence, and effectiveness outside of controlled trial settings, refining best practices. Finally, global policy debates about cost-effectiveness, equity of access, and national rollout strategies will intensify, with today's events in Germany and the United States likely to shape decision-making in other health systems. For patients and caregivers, the approval represents a meaningful improvement in quality of life. Bi-weekly or monthly infusion visits place a heavy burden on families, especially when patients require travel, time off work for caregivers, or complex scheduling. A weekly, 15-second autoinjector that can be administered at home means less disruption and more consistency. For many families, this could be the difference between sustaining treatment or dropping out after induction. For health systems, transitioning stabilized patients to at-home injections can ease resource strain, allowing infusion capacity to be used more efficiently. However, the risk of ARIA and the need for MRI monitoring remain, so systems will still need to ensure appropriate imaging access and patient safety protocols. Scientifically, lecanemab represents a modest but meaningful shift from symptomatic management to disease-modifying therapy. By targeting amyloid protofibrils, it addresses one of the earliest pathological drivers of Alzheimer's disease. The clinical benefit in slowing cognitive decline is not dramatic, but it is statistically significant and clinically relevant for patients in the earliest stages of disease. Sustaining that benefit over years depends on long-term adherence. The new autoinjector format addresses one of the most important barriers to adherence: treatment logistics. By lowering the treatment burden, it may increase persistence and make real-world effectiveness closer to clinical trial outcomes. It also signals a future in which more Alzheimer's therapies are designed with home administration in mind, potentially combining amyloid-targeting agents with tau-directed or other disease-modifying mechanisms. In summary, the FDA's approval of Leqembi IQLIK on September 1, 2025, represents the most important health science development of the day because it changes the paradigm for maintenance treatment of early Alzheimer's disease. For the first time, patients who have completed induction therapy have the option to continue disease-modifying treatment with a weekly autoinjector at home. This reduces reliance on infusion centers, improves accessibility and adherence, eases caregiver burden, and opens capacity in health systems. While safety monitoring for ARIA remains essential, the approval marks a major advance in making Alzheimer's treatment more practical and sustainable. With a U.S. launch set for October 6 at a price of $19,500 per year, a simultaneous launch in Germany on September 1, and further rollouts expected globally, the impact of this decision will ripple across patients, caregivers, health systems, payers, and policymakers. It reflects the next stage in the Alzheimer's therapeutic era, where disease-modifying therapy is not only available but also increasingly designed for long-term use in real-world settings. If you want more updates on the biggest health and science breakthroughs, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.